And ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Thank you all for joining us. Get my words straight. This is the Voice of Reason podcast. My name is Sean Phillips, and as always, I am joined alongside my co-host, Mr. Andy Van Beber. V, how we doing today?
Good. Isn't it kind of weird that it's just we've had so many guests over the last few weeks that it's like, hey, it's me and Sean tonight.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
no, yeah. It is just the two of us. We've got a great conversation cooked up for you guys. It
Yes,
has
indeed.
been the wild week so far, but had a great weekend. You do anything good for Halloween? You guys do any trick
We
or treating?
so let me tell you something. Doing trick or treating here in Louisiana, in our little subdivision here, and I've been a property owner either with this house or my old. I've been a property owner for close to 20 years. And I never have done trick or treating like I did here. So I originally bought 3 bags of candy, right? I'm thinking, okay, and I
Hmm?
mean, I've got this big fruit bowl and I've got it mounded over. And so we start getting kids about 5:30. By 6:30, we're scraping the bottom of the bowl. And
Oh wow.
I'm only giving out 2 pieces to kids, right? And I told Jenny and I said, I'm gonna have to go get some candy. So I ran down to the Dollar General, just right down the road, and I bought about 40 more dollars of candy, which was 8 bags, 8 bags of
Hmm.
candy. And then, I mean, it was heaping over. And by 8 o'clock, that bowl was empty, giving out two
Oh my.
pieces and then sometimes 1 piece. We're getting down to the end, and I told Bryson, I was like, man, we just need to be giving out 1 piece. And we stopped going to door. He and I just put up 2 lawn chairs in the front yard. I mean, it was just like a continuous stream, and I've never seen. It was awesome. I love doing it. Being able to see kids in the neighborhood and stuff like that. So it was a lot, but it was a lot of fun. We had a great time. How about you guys? Did you do the trick or treating thing?
We went trick or treating. Yeah, we rendezvoused with my brother-in-law's family. They've got his brother has a home in Moscow Mills with his wife and
Okay.
kiddo, and so we all went out there, watched a little bit of the Buccaneers Saints game that night.
Mm-hmm.
Had some chili, and then we went out and yeah, Julian walked around as baby Grogu, or yeah, baby Yoda. So she
Oh
had a
man,
blast. So did the trick or treating. We drove back to Jeff City that night, and it was really good time. That
that's
was
good. That's good.
the first time like I've been out, trick or treating in
And
a very long time. So it's kind of fun to see like the kids get to go do it. And I'm an adult now, so if I just want to buy candy, I can buy candy.
one thing that
But to like,
I had a full grown adult, and the guy smelled like cigarettes. Comes to my door wearing a mask, holding out a bag. Like trigger, and I wish I was making this up. Trick or treat. I'm like, okay, and I mean, put and happy Halloween. God bless you. I was like, what just what just happened? I really felt disturbed.
that'd have
So
been fun if he's like, so that's it, huh? Just two pieces, you cheap son of a bitch. All right. Well, happy Halloween, I
no.
guess.
I also did this weekend. I also hosted, or I emceed my first trivia night ever for the Clopton Athletic Boosters. Great
Nice.
night. First time ever doing it. Thanks to everybody. We have a few of our listeners who gave me some tips. And then I'm not making this part up either. Multiple people coming up to me at the trivia night saying, love your podcast. You're doing a great job. I was like, and these are people who I didn't even know were listening
Yeah,
to us.
listening. That's awesome.
And then same,
That's happened to me. It's a good feeling,
oh,
man.
I know. And then trunk or treat on Friday. So we did trunk or treat at Clopton on Friday night. Same thing there. People like,
Yeah.
hey, loving I mean, parents of kids, and they're like, from kids listen for extra credit, and I'm like, and then their parent, well, I got my mom and dad to start listening. I was like, awesome. So anyway,
That's awesome. Yeah. Well,
so before we get too much into tonight,
yeah.
I want to play a little video of an event that happened. Was this last Wednesday?
This is last Thursday.
Last
Last Thursday.
Thursday, and I'm just going to. So, Sean, Pat McAfee, who used to be a kicker for the Colts, correct?
Yes, he's
Yes.
yeah, punter for the
And
Colts.
he has always been known as, I'm going to turn my mic down, I'm a little hot there. Where he's always been known as a outspoken guy, even when he was the kicker. And I think he was the same kicker that Peyton Manning once called "Who listens to a stupid kicker anyway?" or something like that. There was a back in the day, I forgot what it was about, but this
Mm.
guy has always been outspoken. I love Pat McAfee. I actually did not know that he had a podcast though until
It is so yeah, they go live Monday through Friday. I started listening to Pat last year. So as people might know, I'm a huge Green Bay Packers fan. And on Tuesdays, I started listening to Pat because he has what's called Aaron Rodgers Tuesdays, where Aaron Rodgers comes on and just talks to the guys for however long he feels like, however long he has time. And so I'd go to listen to that. And by listening to it, like Pat is hilarious. The guys that he has on his crew are hilarious.
and also said
And
he has AJ, and in this particular one he has AJ Hawk, who is
who he has
also
every day,
who
Monday
is
through Friday,
who is
AJ
also
Hawk, a
a
former
Green Bay
Green Bay
Packer.
Packer.
Yeah, and
Yep.
AJ Hawk was a back in. I remember he was a bad man. He was a
Yeah.
bad man. And when you look at this
Yeah.
guy,
He
yeah. Well,
was
let's
the,
not say anything
yeah,
more.
let's get into it. Yeah.
Let's just play the clip here, and we'll just see what everybody thinks here.
Lewis. Sean, what's going on, pal? What do you want to talk about?
Pat and the boys, how we doing?
Keep it moving.
Good. I just had a couple of things. First off, I wanted to ask, we know the owners are hiding collusion within those emails. That's why Jerry Jones and Hunt and all Stan Kroenke and them are trying to keep St. Louis from getting an expansion team. But there's collusion in those emails. John Gruden and the Washington football team are just a diversion from what's really going to happen, and St. Louis will get its day and billions of dollars.
Okay.
Question, Pat.
Sean, real quick. We have over the last couple of months we have heard about this. There's been smoke. We didn't do enough research because we just assumed this would be something the NFL would just make go away because it was a lawsuit with money. If it involved St. Louis, they wouldn't want to muddy the waters of looking like a league that left the city on bad terms and all that type of. I just thought they would put it away. This has really grown in St. Louis. Is this main headline news? Basically main conversation over there? Is this massive ordeal in St. Louis, and have we kind of been overlooking this, you think?
So it's definitely been kept away from the international media. It's definitely kept around St. Louis is where it's talked about. The reason why it's such a big deal, Pat, is because Missouri courts are a bit different. The NFL has tried to continue to move this around, keep pushing this back, but eventually, finally, a Missouri judge was like, stop with the bullshit. We're not taking it. You guys are going to court. So there's been a lot of talk between different lawyers.
And there you go. That's just a small snippet. You can actually watch the complete clip on our page. We actually have it posted to our page. And first of all, the Irish accent, Sean. Tell me, I mean, what was that all about?
So, okay. So a little bit of a backstory on Pat's show, right? So his big thing is he always talks about he'll repeat, like he goes like, this show stinks, because basically it's not an organized show. It's literally him and his friends talking about the stuff that interests them, which is football, wrestling, stuff like that. So when they have callers come on, a lot of the time the callers suck, and they'll even tell the callers like, don't call back, like, yeah, that no. And so there's a vetting process. You call in. I was working in my office, so I had a lot of computer time, literally just sitting around where I was like typing away. So I called and was on hold for literally listened to the phone ring for 45 minutes. Eventually, one of the guys in the back answered, like, "Hey man, what's your name? What's your question?" So I thought it was like, "Hey, I'm going to do an accent." And just so it seems more intriguing, because there's probably 1,000 bland white guys that shoot them a call with the same nonsense questions or same nonsense. So I was like, I'm going to throw an Irish accent saying I'm calling from St. Louis to throw them off even more. And it got me through.
Mm.
And there's a point, if you listen to the whole
He said,
video,
he's like,
Pat even asked, he's like,
is this
is the
is,
St. Louis accent
oh yeah,
an Irish accent? And I told him, I was like, yeah, I'll be completely honest with you. I'm only doing the accent so I could get on the show today.
the thing that
Um,
killed me was though, right at the beginning, he goes, is this Connor?
yeah,
He thought it was Conor McGregor.
yeah.
That was,
There's two Irish athletes, a Connor being one of them, and a pro wrestler named Finn Balor, who
yeah, right.
both
WWE.
different dialects, are like they're both Irish but different
Right,
dialects, and
right.
and so I've formed my Irish accent that I do and I speak is like a combination of the two of them.
Yeah.
So
Well, I can
yeah.
guarantee you so that clip has probably been played in my classroom about 10 times this last week. I showed it to my boss. He cracked up laughing, almost rolling on the floor, and just But anyway, that was entertaining, and I thought that was really great. So
Yeah, I'm gonna try again this Thursday because I've got some downtime in the office where I'm just working on
yeah,
paperwork,
yeah, send that
where
to
I'm
me.
gonna try again, but I'm gonna do a Scottish accent this time to see if I'll get through. So we're gonna give it a go.
But we've got just a hodgepodge of things that we want to talk about tonight. But I mean, I'll let you lead off. I mean, what we're going to talk about just a couple of news events, and then kind of talk a little bit about teacher shortages and stuff. But there's been just a lot of interesting, different things in the news this week. Did you have anything in particular you wanted to lead with, or you wanted to go with? And
No, I didn't have anything. I did think I saw one thing that was kind of crazy today, trade deadline. And again, I
mm-hmm.
apologize. This is more sports talk. But I'd really just kind of like to take a moment, as something we don't really do usually, but there's a pro football player, Henry Ruggs, who was a Las Vegas Raiders
Mm-hmm.
wide
Yep.
receiver, 22 years old, young man.
Saw this.
Last night had a drunk driving accident
3:30
at
this at
3.
3:30 this morning, actually.
Yeah, where he was driving his Corvette C8, wrecked it into a Toyota RAV4 and killed an individual, leaving the other passenger in the car in critical condition as well. So it's one of those things, like, super surreal. Please be responsible, drink responsibly if you
Mm-hmm.
so choose to drink. Just one of those things where there's now a terrible loss of life, and for an individual who's worth millions of dollars, who can Uber, who can Lyft, who can have anybody else drive, decide to make that choice,
Yeah, it
and
was
is now looking at a potential
2 to yeah.
yeah 2 to 20 years in prison, and with the repercussion, now his NFL career is over. And I know that's less important than the life that's lost, but just
He was just drafted last year, correct?
correct. And he's been a stud. He's the he's the Raiders' number one receiver. It's just one of those things where, if you are a young individual who listens to our show, or if you're a parent who has young people that listen to our show, or you have young children in your life, just educate them. I know there's a more serious tone, but educate them. And as a when I was 18 and going into, and going to parties and doing drinking, my parents, my parents are different than everyone's, other people's parents, but my parents always told me, look, if you drink and have a, party, like, that's okay as long as you make good choices. Now, we would rather be mad for you calling, like, we would rather you call us at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., wake us up to come get you, and be grumpy that we were tired that we had to come get you, as opposed to finding out the next morning you were dead or in trouble. So just, if you're a parent, or if you're that individual that's 18 to, in your 20s, where you don't, I know from someone that's, grew up in Pike County, where there's a lot of gravel roads and stuff. Like, it was never my thing, but a lot of people do road tripping, where they go out drinking and driving around on back gravel roads and stuff. And it's just, there's a lot smarter ways to have fun. So I encourage like just seeing things like that really put it into perspective, and even like perspective of myself of like you're not promised tomorrow. It
Right.
can literally happen. It can, and it when it's not even your fault when it happens. So just
And again,
yeah,
we talk a lot about we've talked a lot in the past about individuals who, I mean, I guess we can also mention the accidental shooting on the Rust, the scene or on the set of the Rust.
that
Alec,
that
the
that
Alec,
is actually a good conversation to be had. Yeah.
and I mean, we'll talk, but I mean, we never, and I'm saying that just to say that it affects anybody and everything at any time. You have to approach life with caution. Don't throw it all to the wind, but at the same time, be careful. But yeah, I do want to
Mhm.
go into this Rust thing too. This is and we can add on to this, and a lot of things that I didn't know about movie sets, but I do know that the same thing happened to Brandon Lee, who is the son of Bruce Lee, on the filming of the movie The Crow. One of my top 10 favorite. I love The Crow,
Great movie. Yeah.
and The Crow. Brandon Lee was same thing, same exact thing.
So there was a slight difference.
As far
The
as
the
what
only
was
slight difference was when Brandon Lee was shot, that was a malfunction of two different blanks. So essentially, there was a blank that was lodged in the weapon
and
that
so
shot
it
Brandon Lee. So when the second one went off,
it
it
fired,
shot
it
that
shot
out
the
like
thing,
a
got
bullet
like a bullet.
projectile,
Okay,
correct? Whereas
this was just
in
they thought it was a
live round in a weapon, um, which is
is this like a one
in
in a is this a 1 in a billion? I mean,
here's
what's the
here's the
likelihood of this
thing.
happening?
Here's the thing, and there's going to be so many people that disagree, and I think what's most I get irritated when look if someone goes out and says a million things if they have their opinion on something and then something in that realm happens to them, people are like aha look like that. It is so frustrating, and people might come at me with this. I don't care. It is so frustrating to see the amount of people that are trying to weigh all the blame on
The pro
Alec Baldwin just because of his
past
political beliefs
and his
and how he is on gun control and handling weapons on a movie set, especially. And this is not like this Rust film in the term of like low budget. Sure, it was going to be like a straight to streaming or
it was
DVD film,
Netflix or something. Yeah,
but even those low budget films are multi-million dollar budgets. Okay, this it is not in this instance, it is not the actor's responsibility. Okay. When he, as an actor, right, if he's in that scene, okay, where he's set in his place for whatever this scene was, what it looks like is he's quite literally shooting, and it was one of those angled things where you kind of see the gun pointed out looking all cool and then bang, and you're supposed to hear an off scene shot or whatever it is. Alec Baldwin was handed the weapon from the props director and manager, letting him know, and then it was called out to the room that they've got a clean weapon, that it was all good. Literally, I'm assuming how it probably went is a lot of how it usually goes on sets like this. There's probably a props or a specific weapons department where they usually, in most cases, if they're using actual weapons, there's like a master armsman that's usually there, which is typically like an off-duty cop, a former, someone that has tons of experience who goes through, and it's their job, their responsibility to make sure those weapons are cleared. Okay, their job to ensure that everything is cleared, because odds are they're probably also the people that are in some cases providing those weapons. So sometimes it could be like if they're if they're getting a bunch of weapons or props from like a prop company or a weapons company, literally they'll have their master armsman bring those props, have them sprayed out so they don't lose them, so they don't get damaged. So there's one person's already have supposed to then clear it. So then the prop handler or whoever's handing said prop weapon to Baldwin is also supposed to clear it. Also, like let's say hypothetically, like if with this particular instance, there's supposed to be a simulated, or like not a simulated round, but a blank. Okay. So odds are these weapons are probably all loaded, all assuming that they're blanks. The actor, Alec Baldwin, did not load these weapons. And a lot of times, unless you are, and here's the thing too, unless you are a weapons expert, okay, unless you're someone that handles these kinds of weapons frequently and you know what a blank looks like, odds are, if you looked at it, there's many people who don't handle weapons that could look at that and go, I couldn't tell the difference between an actual bullet and a blank. Okay. Because like, for example, in an M4, right? When we shoot, we have blanks and we have a firing adapter. So it's literally a big, bright yellow or red box that sits on the end of your rifle. But when you load your blanks, they load into an actual magazine cartridge and they look like a regular old bullet, except that the tip of them is jagged. It's not pointed, right? There's no bullet. It just pops open. So in this case, 2 people failed to ensure that the weapon was cleared. And if it wasn't cleared, that it was loaded with the correct stuff. Okay. Alec Baldwin was probably in place for his scene, was probably handed a weapon, and they probably called like hot weapon or
Cold
live.
weapon.
It was cold, and it was literally probably ready, action, and then boom. Okay. It was quite literally probably placed into his hand, said good to go, and boom, action. Where all these kinds of people are saying, Alec, oh, he should have checked it, cleared it, make sure it's all good. That already went through the proper checks and procedures that other people failed. Okay. It's one of those crazy, you're right, 1 in a million kind of mistakes that it was solely due to negligence. I am a believer that it was not due to the negligence of Alec Baldwin, the actor, because it would have probably already gone through multiple individuals to have been cleared, and his job as the actor is to be handed the prop and pull the trigger. That's like if say they were filming like an action scene with a sword, he's handed a sword and they're like, all right, action, and he's supposed to say maybe hit someone's arm, and he's was handed what he thought was a dull sword, and then all of a sudden it just cuts the arm right off. You know what I'm saying?
Well, let me put 2 questions to you. First question. So, and I got her name. Sarah Zachary was the prop master on and her father, from some of the stuff that I read this week, her father is a legend in this field, whatever you want to call it. That he was that or she had actually she had done a podcast 2 days earlier and said how she was kind of, did you read this, that she said she was kind of shaky on, it was a podcast that she had done 2 days earlier, and so she was I don't know if she was prepared or not. One of our milestone followers, Kyle McGar, says it was stated he was practicing his draw. He wasn't acting a scene. He was practicing. His handler had nothing to do with that exact moment. And I had heard that too, that it actually was a rehearsal. It actually wasn't an actual scene. So my second question then is this, Sean, and you've done a little bit of acting, and why use a real weapon? I mean, what's wrong with, getting a prop gun, like a rubber gun or any more of these plastic toy guns? Why not go with that, clean it up a little bit? Even CGI it, or I don't know, because I'm not a film person. Why can't they do that?
It could be any different plethora of reasons. it's one of those silly things where, like, in some cases, a prop gun, like a prop M4, a prop M16, could cost way more than a real M16 or a real
Really?
M4.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Not in all cases, but like a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's one of those things where it's if you get like a fake gun and you CGI, it comes down to the budget of the film. Like,
Right.
Marvel could use as many fake guns as they wanted and make it look good. They'd have no problem. If I was on a film, like if I did a movie or a film that was super low budget, super indie, uh, and it was a prop gun, it would blatantly be in the video effects with this. It would look terrible. It's they've been used for so long. That's why there's checks and balances. That's why there's film unions.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is one of those things where it's just like, again, like you said, in rehearsal, we're quite literally that it gets handed to him, but beforehand, it's just it
So
sucks.
so are
Um,
these people are these people certified, or how does that
they
work?
in so in most cases, yeah, in most cases, like again, every state could be different. So I can't speak for every state, but like I can almost guarantee, and I don't know for sure, I'm not going to, but like to put in perspective, in Missouri, we have a wrestling commission, right? You have to be a licensed professional wrestler. Odds are in a lot of these states where they're using actual weapons, especially for like, because this was filmed in New Mexico, if I'm not
Right, right.
mistaken.
It was in New
Okay,
Mexico.
so which here's the thing is New Mexico or Albuquerque to be very specific, and this is a good point, is becoming the next mecca of film. Okay, there's Hollywood, there's Atlanta, there's Albuquerque, New Mexico. Okay, and it's just becoming a mecca because New Mexico has great tax laws for films. Get your shit together, Missouri. But also Netflix, because these things are so good, Netflix has built a mega complex. The new Stranger Things, all of Zack Snyder's new movies, probably 90% of Netflix original films and television shows will be shot in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Wow.
Um, I have a friend that I worked on my little indie film thing with, who is represented by an agent in New Mexico, and they straight up have told him, move here, you will not stop working. They don't have enough actors in Albuquerque, New Mexico
Wow.
right now. Um, but usually, so I say that because usually those, like, a lot of these films, especially union films, require people to be licensed, for people to be certified. They usually do. And different states might have different rules, regulations, but I can almost assure you, if we looked through like SAG, the Screen Actors
Right,
Guild,
right.
if we looked through like when if they're on a film, I can almost guarantee you that if there's like weapons or anything like that, the arms handlers have to be licensed or certified. I can almost guarantee it.
So I mean, it's just in the end, it is one of these things. Like you said, I mean, it's a freak thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I still remember Brandon Lee. Going back to him real quick, Brandon Lee wasn't in a lot. I mean, he was actually just at the beginning. He had done a couple of like cop, kind of cop
Mm-hmm.
movies and stuff like that. Nothing really big. And The Crow was supposed to be his really big breakout event. I didn't remember exactly. I'm glad that you said that because I didn't remember exactly how that went down. I knew that it was like
Mm-hmm.
it was something from multiple weapons, but I mean, and what was really weird about that was that scene. I don't know if it was altered or how, because the scene that he was killed in, for those who've watched The Crow before, it's the scene where he's up on the table and all those guys are firing at him, and I guess they either digitally took some, but that scene is still in the film, and I'm from what I
Mm-hmm.
and I could be wrong, but what I understand is that was the scene that he was killed in, and that was like they saved that, and that's the other thing too, Sean. You might want to even pull out that when they shoot a film, they're not shooting it in the same order that you see it when it comes out. I mean, they may, I mean, hey, we're going to work on the ending scene because we've got the perfect conditions for this, that, and the other. All these guys are here. Okay, we're going to, and it was kind of weird. And that scene's about maybe 3/4 of the way through the movie. And that,
Yeah.
and you know, and who knows where this scene was going to come in. I'm also kind of curious to see if they will continue. I'm sure this project will this Rust project will continue. Have you heard anything about? Is this going to
I
continue?
have I have not. It's a good question. Things like that, can really put a damper
Yeah.
in the and especially you got to think like Alec is the executive producer. If he didn't want to go through with it, if he didn't want to finish the film, he's not going to finish the film. It's not like he's hurting for cash. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be interested. But no, I mean you're right. If like for example, like if you're watching a movie and let's say there's a couple different scenes like in one location, right? Like a home. Okay, say they could do a day, but say it's broken down there. There's three different scenes where they're in like a home. They'd film all that in like 1 or 2 days of
Mm-hmm.
just being there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they'll piece it, and it's actually kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The process, because like the first time I ever did anything like that, I was like, oh, because like when I would if I ever made like little sketches or anything like that back in the day, like the way I did it was like you just film it in the order that you're going to do
Right.
it. So that way there's less editing. But that's why there's professionals and people that make,
Well, we did,
millions of dollars to do that.
and I'll just say this, and we'll move on to something else. But I, at my first church that I was a youth pastor at, they wanted all the youth. We had a ton of youth in this, and the kids had talked about doing a video, making a mini movie,
Mm-hmm.
and it was about end times apocalypse. The church, the Christians are taken to heaven while everybody else is left behind, kind of thing. And the movie, I think, it ended up being like 30 minutes. But I remember and we had this system that our school had. It was it was the first version of Adobe Premiere, and for any video geeks, anything,
Mm-hmm.
Adobe
Mm-hmm.
Premiere and it's still it's very expensive today, and I mean, but it does everything. And I sat down with that, and I mean, just cutting the audio and mixing, because we used some instances we actually used a different mic, just mixing and matching. That whole process from beginning to end took me, just in the editing process, took me close to 2 months to just by myself,
It's
and that's
insane.
low, low quality film, and it was just. I can only imagine. I mean, these guys, when they say, "Oh, we're in post production now," well, that doesn't mean jack, because post production can go on for another year. So
Yeah, people forget, like, for example, the Lord of the Rings trilogy
yeah,
was they shot it all at once. Okay, they literally
yep,
shot
yep.
all three films at the same time. And there was even, breaks between when those movies are done, because people just don't understand like how much work goes into editing and adding all that stuff.
And
Like there's a reason why,
when you
there's 2 year, 3 year gaps between movies.
right,
Okay, there's like a reason.
and then when you sit and watch, if you sit, of course, with Marvel now, you have to sit through all the credits anyway. And I never really sat through credits before until Marvel
Mhm.
started doing their. But when you sit there and you just look at I mean,
All the names,
holy
every
cow! I'm just
person,
like,
yeah.
everybody's got some kind of role in it. But yeah,
Hmm.
one of the other things I want to go into, and I want to lead into this, our topic tonight. If you saw the title, it was called "Hot for Teacher." I just couldn't pass that up. But
Heyo.
yeah, but so yesterday we had at Clopton. Of course, we don't have Monday. We don't have Monday school, but I think we have to do it twice a semester. We have twice or three times a semester. We have to have in-service days. It's 3 times a semester, and we had our third in-service day this last Monday. And this particular one, it was more geared for the elementary. They had speakers come in for the elementary, and so the high school did a lot of curriculum where they were working with their groups and everything. And we had a lot of time. We had a little bit of downtime. And one of our new younger teachers, was sitting there, and we were talking. I was talking. I was the old guy in the group. All the other ones were under 30. And this one of our teachers, she got to the point where she was just talking about being just pretty much just beat down by kids, beat down by parents, and she has a young child, and she was really going into the whole thing of how she did not feel appreciated, and she just, I don't know, I don't like, she's like, I don't like what I'm doing, and I want to go back just to being a tutor and just doing my. And hearing this story really, it really rang out to me, because we are in one, of course, we are one of many careers that we have a lot of shortages in. Teaching right now, we are at probably one of our, a study that I read of the schools that they had done, two out of every three schools that they interviewed was dealing with short staffed, whether it was paraprofessionals, actual teachers, administrators. There is a shortage of teachers. And I think there's a lot of different reasons why. And let me just start by saying some of the stats that I pulled up. The number one best paying, if you were to give a guess, Sean, what would you say is the number one paying state for teachers?
The number one paying state for teachers?
Highest paying state.
Ugh.
I'll give you a hint. It's out east. It's out east.
It's not New York.
Mm-mm. Nope.
Like Maryland or something?
Close. Pennsylvania.
Oh,
Average teacher salary for the 2019-2020 year was $70,258. And the average salary in Pennsylvania of all other occupations is $53,950. So the difference is that teachers make 30% more than everybody else. Okay. Now, on the other end, who do you think is the lowest paid state in the union? Also out east. I'll put that out there.
Is that one New York?
No. Oh. It is Virginia. Virginia average 2019-2020 salary was $53,933, whereas the average job in Virginia was making $60,100, which is 10.4% less than everybody else. And so, I mean, where everybody is along the way, Missouri, I had that. Where was that at? Missouri actually was kind of middle of the road. Where is that stat at? I actually had it set out, and now I can't find it. Here we go. Missouri so the average teacher salary in Missouri 2019-2020 is $50,817, with the average worker making $50,140. So we're even. We're pretty close to even. And we are, for once we're not last in something. So, and a lot of these reasons that they give as to, teacher salaries that have increased, like, for example, another interesting stat that I found, over the last 5 years, the state that has changed the most is paying teachers more than what they ever had before is Washington. Washington, compared to 5 years ago, is paying almost 15.99%. States like Mississippi, Louisiana, Indiana, Florida, Wyoming are all in the 10+% less as far as pay. And
Indiana?
Yeah, Indiana. Oh. So on the list, Indiana is, so they're still paying better than what they are. But as far as wages haven't kept up with, what I'm saying is their wages haven't kept up as far, when they're giving these numbers, it's like, okay, how has it changed since then, since 2010,
Sure.
Since 2010. And so they haven't kept up. And when you look at what the teacher shortage is, okay, obviously COVID-19 is going to throw, and I had to tell my niece went into teaching. Her first year of teaching was 2019. I'm sorry, 2019. And I told her at the end of the year, I said, not all years are going to look like this. Not all, And of this survey, and this was done by frontlineeducation.com. This is kind of like the
Mm-hmm.
Teacher's Bible website almost. They have tons of resources. And so I went to this site, and they said they surveyed 1,200 schools across the country. So it wasn't a wide survey, but they said two-thirds of the survey respondents report teacher shortages, which was a record high since they started this study back in 2015. It said while many rural schools systems cited location as their major factor behind their teacher shortage, districts in all settings are struggling. Teacher shortages are most common in urban schools, and that's what surprised me. Well, it didn't really surprise me. It's most common in urban school settings, with 75% of districts in cities showing shortages. It says across all settings, 44% with districts reported having difficulty filling vacancies across grade level and subjects. Now, so here are some of the top areas. Here's the top areas for the number one area where they're having shortage, and this is no surprise to me at all. Special education.
Mm.
Cannot get special education teachers to save your life. And the other top shortages are secondary math, paraprofessionals, secondary physical science, bilingual education. And
Okay.
so when we did this last year, so we were going to try to hire, Clopton was going to try to hire a PE teacher. And usually all it takes, and for the last few teachers that, I mean, our administration has kind of, went to the source, went to the tree to, see how fresh the apples were, so to speak, by going to the local colleges, Hannibal Grange, Missouri Baptist, Westminster, Mizzou, Columbia College, Lindenwood. We reach out to all these local schools and we say, okay, tell us what you have. How many do you have? Who do you have ready? And we could not find anybody. We found one applicant who applied, and this is part of the problem, and we'll get into this here in a second, but part of the problem is a lot of these people are not properly qualified. And I'll explain that here in a second, but they talk about paraprofessionals. Now, this is a very paraprofessional and substitute teachers have, they have the low wages, and they say, well, it's not worth the risk. But as far as getting new teachers, part of the problem that we're having with these teachers is I've got to find problem number one is a lack of fully qualified applicants. It says the most common reason for district shortages is that there are simply not enough fully qualified applicants. The new hires may lack sufficient preparation to succeed in day-to-day work. Hiring teachers who have potential but need to develop their skills can lead to unsuitable revolving door of job postings. Now that comes down to the school. One of the reasons why I have stayed at Clopton as long as I have, our mentor program, my mentor, and for all of our Clopton listeners, my mentor was Mike McCrory. And this was a guy who would take me aside from time to time and just say, hey, and it wasn't here, you need to do that. It was just like, how are you doing? I mean, he was one of a kind, because this guy would say, how's it going? What are you dealing with? What kind of problems are you having? And he was my sounding board, and one of the superintendents that they interviewed for this survey said, we are able to hire many teachers, but not many are actually able to perform the job well. Our district advertises that we have weekly professional development opportunities, and we do. However, they aren't targeted enough to help those teachers who lack the skills needed to help them become better educators. And it says we use them for a year or two, and then we throw them away. And what usually happens is it's these young teachers who don't know how to handle, and I think the biggest problem is handling kids who are, just today's teenagers. I look at when I started teaching in 1997, and I look at the kids then to the kids that I have now. One of the biggest problems that teachers face is what I call a lawnmower parent. A lawnmower parent who mows everything down in front of their kids. My kid, you're not going to crap on my kid. You're not going to do this to my kid. And screw you if you try to do something to my kid. And you get these teachers who are run over. And unfortunately, I feel very fortunate in our district because we have great administrators who back us up. My boss tells us every year, the first day, he said, I will back you up. Don't make me have to not back up something I can't back up. Mm-hmm. And my boss has always had my back. The elementary has a great administrator who has her teachers' backs, you know. But I've also been a part of schools where they literally will throw you under the bus, which is why I left my last job. I mean, I'll be frank, I left halfway through the year because my administrator threw me under the bus for various reasons. And it's just, if you don't have the support, we're not going to keep teachers. When you look at Clopton, we've retained, and you as a student know this, we have a lot of long-term teachers who have been at Clopton. We had a teacher who just retired, fully retired last year, Miss Helen Boyd. I hope she doesn't mind me mentioning her name on our show. But Miss Helen Boyd was a Spanish teacher for 47 years. Okay, and I think 43 of those 47 were at Clopton. You know, and you ask her, why did you stay so long? The community, the support, the staff, the people, the kids. You know, we had other teachers who, you know, we have our current math teacher. We had Sean Yates on a few weeks ago. His mother has been at Clopton for close to 30 years. You know, again, why? Because of the atmosphere. If you create an atmosphere that is friendly and supportive, you're going to keep teachers. But yet you go to these big city schools where they run through teachers like people run through socks, and there's not any support, there's not any backup for these young teachers. These kids are getting burnt out, and they're saying, screw this, I'm going to go do something else. And I'll even say this, I should have put this video up, but I got from one of my students, and it was from her, I don't know if she was supposed to let this out or not, but she sent me a copy, and I screenshotted it, of the local Walmart up here in Bowling Green. All right. One of the things that caught my eye was the overnight stocking staff they're starting, these new wages are going to go into effect, she said, this Saturday, $18.70 an hour. Okay. Now, of course, they take out my retirement and they take out my accident insurance. I don't have the school's health insurance. But even with that Walmart worker is taking home $100 less a week than I am. That, just to let that sink in just for a second, if I get pissed off enough and I don't like my job, which by the way, I love my job, but if somebody was to get, and I see that at a local Walmart, that I can go, I can make up $100 somewhere else. You know, I'll do Uber, I'll do Uber or Lyft on the weekend. I'll make up $100 in a day. Okay. Teachers do not like the fact that they're, in some of these states, there's no way you could get me to teach in Virginia or Oklahoma or North Dakota. Some of these other states are just pathetic pay. You know, it's right at minimum wage. So why go into that? And problem number 2 that they talked about, they said, well, this is the other factor. They said 69% of districts without teacher shortages report that they have very high retention rate compared to only 42% of those with shortages. Those 69% of districts, what they're doing is that kind of thing. They are supporting their teachers. They're standing behind their teacher. But anyway, and I kind of got ahead of myself, but salary and benefits lack compared to other careers. So like I said, if I want to go and say, hey, I want to go teach, I want to go work at Walmart, and if we go up to $15 an hour minimum wage, when, it's people like in my line of work, your line of work, even, we're not going to see pay raises. We're in white collar jobs. White collar is not going to see the same kind of increase. And more. Hey, kudos to our blue collar friends who are going to get minimum wage increase. Okay, kudos to you that are, and I applaud that, but at the same time, it robs us who are salaried workers, especially those of us, me and you, who are paid for by tax dollars. What's the way that I get? The only way I can get a pay increase is if our school board, and our school board does a, we have, our school board does a great job of saying, okay, we've got to look at the budget. Here's what we're expecting coming from the state. Here's what we have in property taxes. Here's where we can stretch this dollar here and that dollar there. And so if a teacher or if a, is to get a pay raise, they're going to have to look at things and say, how can we get our teachers more? Well, we'll have to do a higher tax rate, right? I mean, that's the only way, and I'm sure the military is allotted. Okay, here's what we're allotted for, what we're budgeting for, and so people like us, when other people can say, I've known a lot of teachers who have went out and have went into retail, and make more money. I know people who go into, a big one is the hospitality industry. Going into the hospitality industry, either being like managerial stuff, make more money. And then I know others who just go, a friend of mine who used to teach here at Louisiana, he was a coach. And I'd asked him last year to track me, and I said, hey, where's such and such? He quit teaching. Okay, what's he doing? He's a contractor. He doesn't have to put up with all the bull crap of, and to me, Sean, that is it's an insult. And the last problem that they have, and then anything that you want to add in, it says fewer new education school graduates. The third most common reason cited for the shortage is that institutes of higher learning education and teacher prep programs are graduating fewer new teachers. Whether undergraduate students shy away from the low salaries associated with teaching, or they perceive that educators are treated unfairly by students, parents, or the community, education schools just aren't attracting as many private enrollees, or as many enrollees as they used to. I love what I do. I went into this career realistically knowing that I don't go into teaching for the money. I've never been into teaching for the money. Now, when I go into teaching, there were times early in my career at Clopton that before I got married, I did everything I could. I coached softball. I coached basketball. I was the PA announcer for the football team. I did PA for the basketball team. A Stuco sponsor, Quiz Bowl sponsor. And there was times when I was catching myself coming and going. I was making quite a bit of money, but you had to do a lot of things to get into doing that. And I've watched a video of there was a documentary they did on teachers in Oklahoma. There's a large number. It's a large percentage of Oklahoma teachers who are working 2 and 3 jobs. They get done at school and then they go and they work retail, or they'll go and they'll Lyft and Uber. One guy was a roofer, and for that, when at my old school down in Southeast Missouri, our science teacher who had been there for 30 years worked at Walmart too. She would work till 3:30, and then she'd have to be at work at Walmart. She worked from Walmart at 4:30 to 9:30. And and where I was at down Southeast Missouri was a poor district. Now, being that it was 1997, my first teacher salary was $21,000 a year. I had students who were working for Tyson Chicken who were making more money than what I was making. And they were looking at me like, really? We want to listen to you? I had a lot of kids that said, I make more money than you. But it's a problem. It's an issue that really, really, really irks me.
Yeah, I have a couple of friends that I met in college that were education majors, and they no longer teach. They hated it. And it wasn't because they didn't like the actual job itself. It's because, like you had said, they didn't have any support from administration. I talked to a buddy because I had actually kind of thought about going into. I would love at the time. There was a time where I would love to be a PE teacher. I thought that'd be a lot of fun. I would love to coach. I think it'd be something that I'd enjoy. However, like for me, I would take the fitness aspect of the curriculum a little, like there'd be some actual mustard to it. And I talked to a buddy of mine who is a PE teacher, and I asked, "Hey man, like how do you like it? Like what's the good, what's the bad? What do you do if you got a student that doesn't want to work out?" Like, and he's like, "You can't make these kids do anything. And if you try, then the school board and the superintendent are down your throats as to why they have parents calling because their kid is being told to run laps 1 hour a day, So um it's tough, man. It is tough. Even in my own family, and talking and heard just some of the horror stories at the elementary level.
Oh,
And it's tough. Like for me, and I'm a firm believer that property tax is criminal. Okay. Now, for districts like ours, it's super important to keep people paid and to keep the school open. Um, I wish that wasn't the case. We've talked about this, I think, before. If you look at like college is where the United States is world renowned. People come to the United States for college. But if you look at like the elementary, junior high, and high school levels, the rest of the world is on a different scale compared to like developed countries are on a different level.
Asian countries especially. Of course, also
Yes. I mean,
the Japanese have the highest suicide rate among students too, though as well.
and I'm not saying like we need to put on a demand of like, that standardized testing on these kids, but if I'm a parent, right? Let's say my kid goes to a class where there's 30 students in a class, right? Pretty typical for most, classrooms, um, even at a large school. You're trusting that teacher with, your kid and their education. Why would you not want them, you know, you want those people taken care of financially? I wish we had more teachers per classroom. Could you imagine
The
how
number
how if you had two teachers to a classroom of 30, let's say one teacher per 15 kids, oh my God, the amount of one-on-one time those kids could have, just the amount of work that could get done. But at the same time, you have to pay those individuals fair rate. And mind you, there's a million different ways or nonsense things I could say to throw out as to why or what we could do to get those taxes up to get those people paid.
and overcrowding. So you mentioned that overcrowding in our city schools. Now, my niece teaches down at Camdenton, down by the lake. All
Oh
right,
yeah.
largest one of the wealthiest school districts in the state of Missouri because it revenue is
Hmm.
from the lake. And her average classroom 25 kids.
Hmm.
Okay, now my average classroom 10 to 15.
Hmm.
Another reason why I don't go to another school. I had offers to we've had teachers come from Troy to our school this year.
Hmm.
One of them is a sister of a good friend of ours. Okay, and she came to our school, and one of the things I'm like, why in God's name did you come here from Troy? She said it's a better atmosphere. The discipline, when you discipline a kid and you send them to the principal here, of course, we have a principal that strikes fear of God into people,
Hmm.
but no support discipline, no support, no backing up. When a teacher comes in, they just kind of throw the teacher to the parent to let them feast.
Hmm.
But I think the another reason that is also what one thing is pushing a lot of the veterans teachers out, and this is the one that causes me sometimes to. It used to when I first started teaching, it would cause me to have panic attacks back when I was 5 year teacher, and all of the new stuff that the state pushes down the pike every year. You know, I have taught. I haven't taught the same way for the last 25 years. I've altered. I've done stuff. I did stuff with you guys that I haven't done with the kids I have
Hmm.
now. But the content that I teach is the same. Everything that I teach is, the same content because I know what's going to be on that test at the end of the year. All right. And our numbers have steadily, and you see this across the board, except in your super wealthy districts where they are super specialized, your numbers are starting to go down. Now, the material you're teaching isn't any different. What's different? It's not the teachers, it's not the content. Okay, what's the common denominator then? The students, the parents. And I hate to be that guy, and I'll probably get angry text or emails tomorrow at school. But until parents, and this isn't really a Clopton thing. We have a pretty solid group of parents at Clopton.
Hmm.
But I've seen but we still have those who could, but when your kids come home, when my butt hit the door when I was a teenager, when my kids hit the door, what do you got tonight? What are you working on? Do you have your homework done? Turn that phone off. Tonight, Briley's got a book report that's due on Friday, and she was telling me all week, I've only got 100 pages left. She told me that last week. I dropped the ball. I said, well, bring me that book and let me look at it. She still had she's got a book report that's due on Friday, and she's still got 200 pages left to read. I'm like, this is not okay.
Hmm.
I said, no phone. You're not. Phone's gone for the rest of the week. I said, you got to get this book knocked out.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, there's some parents who are just like, oh, you got your video game system, or as long as you got your TV, I need to go find my space. I mean, being a parent, and you know this, being a parent is hard work. And
Yes, it is.
if you want your child to get a quality education, part of that, yes, part of it does lie in school, but part of it also lies on you, the parent, to say,
Hmm.
are you doing what it takes to make it up to snuff?
Hmm.
And we, as, and a lot of there's always these workshops, how to make history fun, how to make math fun. And when I have a kid who says, well, I'm bored, I said, do you want me to put on a clown suit and do a dance for you? No, I'm not here to entertain you.
Right.
That's the other thing. So, I don't know. I could go on all night about that, but, respect those people who are in these type of jobs. I mean, look at your Army recruiter, look at your teacher, look at your principals. I think principals are in some of these smaller schools are probably the most overworked and underpaid people ever because you don't have a principal, an assistant principal, a disciplinary. You've got the principal,
Hmm.
and these are guys who have to do everything from curriculum to discipline to teacher relations. Whereas in some of these larger schools, you've got principal that's primarily just the curriculum guy. You've got a principal who's just the disciplinary guy. So, I mean, something just to take into consideration when you look at these kind of. Oh, Jimmy Burnham. She says, I should have logged in sooner. There's so much to say on the topic of education. Yes. And that's another one, you know. Jimmy Burnham, by the way, she'll hate me for saying this, but any teachers that or any schools that need a good social studies teacher, I will vouch for Jimmy Burnham. Contact the show on our page and I will get Jimmy Burnham out to you. She's a great teacher. So, anyway.
Man, yeah, and you're right. Like even with my side of things, like as a guard recruiter going into schools, like I see it. I see it in but it's very similar. My smaller schools are very similar to Clopton, where there's people are very personable with each other. Like it's just little things. Like one of my counselor at Tipton is awesome, knows all the kids like the back of her hand, and is good to work with, and it's engaging to get in the schools. Then I go to like Jeff City, and if there's like a certain student like I need to meet with or something, I have to like talk to 8 counselors before they figure out who exactly I'm talking about. Like the administration doesn't even know who I'm talking about, and they're a kid that's walking around the schools there. So Yeah. It
So do you think in these bigger schools, and I mean, you get into more of them than I do you do you see so what you just described to me is I think is a problem too within education is that there are a lot of kids who are falling between the cracks in these bigger schools.
yeah, a ton of them. Like just I'll literally go like if like if I'm meeting with a kid or something that needs to fill out paperwork and the school's the only place I can meet him that week, is I'll go in and I'll go to the front desk and say, "Hey, I'm certain so and so. I'm here to meet this person. They just need to sign this thing for me." Who? What grade are they in? This grade. Okay, how do I spell their name? Do you know what they look like?
Wow.
I mean, it is, yeah,
Wow.
it can be pretty frustrating sometimes, especially when like you're just like, and there's a lot of high schoolers now. Like the big thing is, and this is just, I mean, I'll shamelessly plug my job in here. There's a lot of individuals that are kind of like on the fencers, right? Where they're just unsure. And it's not even just about like taking a plunge, but you know, it gets frustrating. I have a like, and this is just with any job, but like for me in recruiting, I'll talk to people who will say, yeah, they're interested. And for, I'm not going to air anything, but like I'll see someone's situation and see all the ways that the guard like could benefit them, right? Not and just the service that they can do for their community and do for their country. But I'll talk to individuals where at the time there's a good setup. Like if they test well enough, they could they'll get the job they want. They'll get a lot of things, and I'll work all that way up. And then the second that it's like, hey man, all we got to do is press the green button and we're shoot fire, and then you never hear from them. And then when you do hear back from it, I don't know. There's a lot of that.
And
And
you don't, so then you don't, you're on your side of the coin, you're not getting the support you need because if you've got a good counselor who's plugged in and knows their student, they're going to
my
say, hey,
counselors that are plugged in that know their kids are the best to work with. I mean, I had a counselor my first year that would literally drag kids into her office that she knew were like, hey, you don't have a plan. Worst case scenario, you listen to him for 10 minutes and see if it's a plan that might work for you. And that there were soldiers I enlisted off of that because that counselor actually cared to say, look, you don't know what you say you want to go to college, but I've seen your grades. I know what your parents make. You ain't going to college for free. Okay. And you're not going to qualify
mm-hmm.
for a whole lot of stuff. Like this can help, so those counselors and those small town communities are great. That's where I like working those schools. But even then, like some of the, so working with some of the juniors, seniors, it's hard. So for anyone that's listening, if you're 34 or younger and you're looking to see if you want to serve your community, get some debt paid off, all that good stuff, give me
check,
a holler.
check my boy out.
Yeah, no, tonight was
Yeah.
a great talk. It was
Uh,
it was fun.
so is it too soon for us to advertise or to tell about the big thing that's going to be coming up next week?
No, I'd say it's
You know
totally fine.
what? Next, so we've been wanting to do this ever since we started this.
Yeah.
Next week, I don't know. We'll have to talk about this later if we're going to do just two shows or one show next week. But I will have the pleasure of being in Jefferson City for the Missouri Youth in Government Conference. It's Christmas in November for me. I love Missouri Youth in Government. It's a YMCA program. And so I'll be in Sean's backyard, and we will, for once, it's going to take a few more cameras and another microphone, but we're going to do face to face. We will be there, and I'm sure we'll find a fantastic topic to talk about.
Oh
But
yeah.
I'm really excited about that. So we may do a show next Monday. We may wait until next Saturday. So just stay tuned. We'll keep you posted on that. But man, and I'm liking this. One other thing I want to mention, I like this little feature now that Facebook Live's been doing for us. Our milestone, what do they call it? They called it the milestone. Let me see it here. Milestone follower, I think is what they called them. Yeah,
Hmm.
milestone. So our milestone followers, we have. I'll just mention a few of them: Kyle McGuire, Colby Coleman, uh, Daniel Harvey. Some of the people who have been with us and who've uh, Facebook labels these as people who have watched our a lot of our podcasts live. I just want to thank you, our milestone followers. Thank you for tagging along with us all this way. We really do appreciate that. So
Yeah, and if you guys want to become a milestone follower, make sure you guys check us out right here, the Voice of Reason podcast. Make sure to check us out wherever you get your podcast needs, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Make sure you guys check us out on YouTube.com, Voice of Reason podcast. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Again, we want to grow. We want to do bigger, better things, and we can't.
Growing.
And slowly but surely, we are growing, and we couldn't do it without you guys and your
Thank you.
support, your likes, your comments, your shares. So please keep it up, and I can't wait to talk to you guys next week.
We'll see you guys.